So often we hear people say, Islam teaches us to be kind to everyone. And while that's true, we must understand what that kindness actually means. You see, in Islam, kindness is not a blanket permission to be agreeable in every situation, nor is it an obligation to tolerate injustice or evil. Kindness in Islam has boundaries, and those boundaries are defined by Allah Himself. It is a mercy from Allah that He teaches us how to balance compassion with justice, because unrestrained kindness can sometimes cause more harm than good. Let me ask you a question. If you see someone committing oppression and you stay silent because you don't want to upset them, is that kindness? Or is it cowardice disguised as kindness? If you keep helping someone even when you know they're using your help to hurt others, are you truly being kind? Or are you enabling evil? Allah warns us about this in the Quran. And do not incline toward those who do wrong, lest the fire touch you. Surah Hud 103. This verse is powerful. It tells us that even leaning, just inclining towards wrongdoers can lead us to destruction. Why? Because when you show misplaced mercy, you're not only harming yourself, you're also empowering the wrongdoer to continue. That is not compassion. That is injustice. The Prophet Muhammad was the most compassionate human being. He was known as a mercy to the worlds. But his kindness was never blind. It was guided by hikmah, wisdom. He forgave those who deserved forgiveness, but he also stood firm against those who were harming others. There were moments when he refused to compromise, even if it meant facing hostility or losing followers. Why? Because he was not here to please people, he was here to please Allah. And this is where many of us today go wrong. We confuse kindness with weakness. We believe that being a good Muslim means smiling and staying silent, even when truth is being trampled on. But in reality, Islam teaches us balance. Be gentle, yes. Be merciful, yes. But do not let your kindness make you a doormat for others. The Prophet ends saying, a believer is not bitten from the same hole twice. This means that as a believer, you should be smart, discerning, and firm enough to protect yourself from repeated harm. This applies in every area of life. At work, in your family, with friends, and even in society at large. Sometimes you need to say no. No to those who exploit your good nature. No to those who manipulate your kindness for their own selfish goals. No to systems that perpetuate injustice and expect your silent approval. Saying no when done for the sake of Allah and within the limits of the Sharia is not harshness. It's an act of faith. Do you know what happens when kindness loses its boundaries? You lose respect, not just from others, but even from yourself. Your soul starts to resent your outward actions because deep down, you know that this isn't kindness anymore. It's weakness. And the more you tolerate wrongdoing in the name of being nice, the more you contribute to the spread of that wrongdoing. Islamic kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It's about pleasing Allah. Sometimes that requires soft words and open arms. Other times it requires firmness, drawing lines, and walking away from those who are toxic or harmful. This balance is what makes Islamic ethics so profound. The Sahaba understood this very well. They were gentle and merciful to the believers, but they were firm and strong against those who sought to destroy truth. This is the character Allah describes in the Quran. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and those who are with him are strong against the disbelievers, but merciful among themselves. Surah Al-Fatah 29. So next time you're faced with a situation where you feel your kindness is being abused, pause and ask yourself, is this kindness bringing me closer to Allah? Or am I using kindness as an excuse to avoid confrontation? To avoid standing for what's right? There is a huge difference between being kind and being naive. Islam asks us to be kind with strength, not kind with weakness. Strength that is rooted in faith, in justice, and in love for Allah. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to hold them accountable. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to step back and protect your peace. This is what Islam wants from you. Not blind kindness, but balanced mercy. And remember, it's better to lose people by standing for truth than to lose Allah by pleasing people. When we talk about kindness, many people assume it's just about being soft, being agreeable, never upsetting anyone. But Islam doesn't call us to that type of kindness. Islam calls us to a kindness that is intelligent, a kindness that is guided by wisdom. You see, if kindness is not rooted in hikmah, wisdom, it can very easily become destructive. It can harm you, and it can even harm the very people you think you're helping. Think about this. Sometimes in our effort to be kind, we end up supporting someone in doing wrong. Maybe a friend asks you to cover up their sin. Maybe a family member expects you to help them in something clearly haram, and you do it because you don't want to hurt them. You think, it's okay, I'm just being kind. But let me ask you, what kind of kindness is it to help someone dig their own grave in the Akira? What kind of kindness is it to assist someone in injuring Allah? That's not kindness. That's betrayal. This is why the Prophet N taught us about hikmah, placing things in their proper place. He was the most merciful human being, yet his mercy was never misplaced. There were times when he forgave and times when he said no. There were moments when he embraced people with gentleness and moments when he firmly stopped them. Why? Because true mercy sometimes requires you to be firm. True kindness sometimes requires you to say words that might sting in the moment, but will heal later on. One of the tragedies of our time is that we've confused kindness with approval. We think that to be kind means we must accept every action, every behavior, no matter how harmful or sinful. But Islam doesn't ask to compromise truth for the sake of people's feelings. Allah tells us in the Quran, indeed, Allah does not like those who exceed the limits. Shura al-Baqarah 190. Even kindness has its limits. And I want you to think about this on a psychological level. When you are overly kind to people who don't appreciate it, what happens? They don't suddenly become better people. Most of the time, they take advantage. They begin to expect more from you. They begin to disrespect you. And over time, you feel resentful, drained, even angry. That's because you're going against your own fitrah, your God-given sense of justice. In Islam, kindness must never be separated from justice. Imagine a judge who pardons every criminal in the name of kindness. Is that judge kind, or is he enabling corruption? Likewise, when you tolerate harmful behavior in the name of kindness, you're not helping anyone. You're allowing injustice to grow inside your heart and in the world around you. The Prophet said, help your brother, whether he is an oppressor or oppressed. The companions asked, O Messenger of Allah, we understand helping him when he is oppressed. But how can we help him when he is an oppressor? The Prophet replied, by stopping him from his oppression. Bukhari and Muslim, stopping someone from wrongdoing is an act of kindness. Refusing to support sin is an act of mercy. Saying no to toxic people is an act of self-respect. And in Islam, protecting your dignity is part of protecting your faith. This doesn't mean we become harsh or arrogant. Islam is never about cruelty. It's about balance. Be gentle but not naive. Be forgiving, but don't let people walk over you. Say no, but say it with dignity and respect. This is the way of the believer. We need to start asking ourselves, is my kindness bringing me closer to Allah? Or is it dragging me into situations that displease Him? If the answer is the latter, then it's time to reevaluate. Because real kindness begins with obedience to Allah, not obedience to people's whims. Sometimes people will call you harsh when you refuse to support their wrongdoing. That's okay. Let them say what they like. You are not here to win everyone's approval. You are here to win the approval of the one who created you. So the next time you feel pressure to be kind in a way that compromises your faith, remember this: kindness without wisdom is not a virtue. It's a trap. And the believer is not meant to fall into the same trap over and over again. True kindness is not about pleasing people at the expense of truth. True kindness is about pleasing Allah and saving yourself and others from harm, even when it's uncomfortable. So be kind. But let your kindness be guided by wisdom. That is the kindness that Islam loves. And that is the kindness that changes lives. One of the biggest challenges we face in life is the desire to be liked by everyone. It's almost as if we've been conditioned to seek the approval of people at all costs, even if it means betraying our own values. But let me remind you, as believers, our purpose is not to win the hearts of everyone around us. Our purpose is to win the pleasure of Allah. There's a profound difference between living for Allah's approval and living for people's acceptance. When you live to please people, you will exhaust yourself trying to meet their endless expectations. You will say yes when your heart is screaming no. You will smile when your soul is in pain. And worst of all, you will compromise your faith just to avoid upsetting someone. But when you live for Allah's approval, everything changes. Suddenly you find peace even when people don't understand you. You find courage even when you have to stand alone. You realize that it's better to displease the entire world than to displease the one who controls your soul. The Prophet unfaced this test repeatedly. There were moments when the Quraysh came to him and said, "We will accept your religion if you just make small compromises. Worship our idols for 1 year and we'll worship your God the next." It would have been easy for him to agree in the name of kindness, in the name of keeping the peace. But what did Allah reveal? "Say, O disbelievers, I do not worship what you worship, to you your religion and to me mine." Surah Al-Kafirun 1:6, and this was not arrogance, it was clarity. The Prophet understood that pleasing Allah takes priority over everything else. He understood that truth is non-negotiable. And so even if it meant losing followers, even if it meant being ridiculed, even if it meant standing alone, he stood firm. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. How many times have we stayed silent in the face of wrong because we didn't want to upset someone? How many times have we gone along with a friend's sinful plan because we feared losing their friendship? How many times have we laughed at a dirty joke or nodded at an un-Islamic idea just to avoid being labeled too religious or too strict? This is what happens when we value people's acceptance more than Allah's pleasure. And the irony is, no matter how much you try to please people, it will never be enough. Today they'll want one thing from you. Tomorrow they'll demand something else. And if you ever fail to meet their expectations, the same people who praised you will turn against you. The Prophet warned us about this trap. He said, "Whoever seeks Allah's pleasure at the expense of people's displeasure, Allah will be pleased with him and will cause the people to be pleased with him. And whoever seeks the pleasure of people at the expense of Allah's displeasure, Allah will be displeased with him and will cause the people to be displeased with him." Ibn Hibban, this hadith is a wake-up call. When you chase people's approval, you lose both Allah and the people. But when you chase Allah's approval, even if people are upset in the short term, Allah will turn their hearts toward you in ways you never imagined. This doesn't mean we become rude or disrespectful. Islam teaches us to have excellent manners, to speak with gentleness, and to deal with people with compassion. But it does mean that we have to set clear boundaries. It means that we have to say, "I cannot do this because Allah does not allow it." It means we have to have the courage to be unpopular if popularity comes at the cost of truth. Think about the great prophets before us. None as Ibrahim, as Musa, na as. They were all rejected by their people. They were mocked, insulted, even threatened. But they didn't let that stop them from standing firm. Why? Because their goal was never to be loved by everyone. Their goal was to be loved by Allah, Today, we live in a world where truth is often unpopular. If you hold on to your hijab, people might mock you. If you refuse to shake hands with the opposite gender, people might call you extreme. If you speak out against injustice, people might label you a troublemaker. But let me ask you, what is the value of being loved by people if it means being hated by Allah? So the next time you are tempted to compromise your values to please others, pause and reflecting, what will this cost me in my relationship with Allah? Is their approval worth my akhirah? The hearts of people are in Allah's hands. Don't sell your principles for their temporary smiles. Please Allah, and He will make the right people love you in ways you could never arrange yourself. Sometimes, in the name of kindness, we allow people to walk all over us. We forgive the same betrayals again and again. We keep giving to those who never appreciate, never reciprocate, and sometimes even harm us in return. And we convince ourselves that this is what Islam teaches, that this is what it means to have a soft heart. But my brothers and sisters, Islam does not ask us to destroy ourselves for others. Islam asks us to be balanced, to forgive where forgiveness is due, but also to protect our own dignity and sanity. There's a difference between forgiving someone and enabling their toxic behavior. There's a difference between being merciful and allowing yourself to be abused. The Prophet taught us mercy, but he also taught us strength. He said, the strong person is not the one who can wrestle others to the ground. The strong person is the one who controls himself in anger. Bukhari and Muslim, that self-control also includes knowing when to step back, when to say enough is enough. Let's be honest. Some people drain you emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. They take advantage of your good character. They keep asking and asking. And when you have nothing left to give, they still expect more. And you, because of your soft nature, feel guilty for saying no. You fear being seen as unkind or selfish. But in Islam, there is no virtue in destroying yourself to please others. Allah tells us in the Quran, do not let your hatred for a people prevent you from being just. Be just, that is nearer to righteousness. Shura al-Mayadah, the eighth and now, if this is how we're told to treat those we dislike, imagine how much more we are asked to maintain justice in our relationships with those we love. Justice means balance. Justice means you do not keep tolerating wrong in the name of kindness, because when you do, you are no longer being just to yourself or to them. You see, every time you allow someone harm you without consequences, you teach them that their behavior is acceptable. You're not helping them become better people. You're giving them permission to continue in their toxic ways. That's not kindness. It's injustice. The Prophet John said something profound. Do not be a people without minds of your own, saying, if people treat us well, we will treat them well. And if they wrong us, we will wrong them. But accustom yourselves to do good if people do good, and not to do wrong if they do evil. Terminated, notice how this hadith doesn't tell us to blindly forgive or to allow wrong behavior to continue. It tells us to maintain our own integrity, to rise above revenge, but also to not stoop down to wrongdoing ourselves. Sometimes doing good means forgiving. Other times, doing good means holding someone accountable. And sometimes, the greatest good you can do is to walk away completely and leave the matter to Allah. Let's take an example many of us can relate to. Perhaps you have a family member or friend who keeps gossiping about you, spreading lies, yet they come back to you with a smile as if nothing happened. And because you don't want to cause a scene, you let it go. Then it happens again and again. What have you done? You've taught them that they can harm you and still have access to you. Islam doesn't tell you to hate them, but it does give you the right to protect yourself. It gives you the right to limit your interaction, to say, I forgive you, but I will no longer allow you to have this kind of influence in my life. The Prophet was the most forgiving of all. But even he and kept certain people at a distance when their behavior warranted it. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Forgiveness is for your heart. Reconciliation requires trust, and trust must be earned. And remember, my brothers and sisters, your time, your energy, your mental peace, these are blessings from Allah. You are accountable for how you spend them. If you keep pouring yourself out for people who don't value you, you are wasting the amana Allah has given you. So the next time you feel guilty for saying no, remind yourself Allah did not create you to please His creation. Allah created you to worship Him. Protecting yourself from toxic people is not selfishness. It's an act of self-preservation for the sake of Allah. Kindness in Islam is not about allowing others to trample your dignity. It is about being merciful where mercy is deserved and firm where firmness is required. Learn to forgive, but also learn to protect your peace. Your heart is a gift from Allah. Don't hand it to those who don't know its value.